Oh, what's good, my menace society? It is your host with the most, Shadowloke, back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and are subscribed to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. Highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Now, what I wanted to discuss was the whole protest that is going down in Los Angeles, the whole riots and all that, right? Um, because I seen a bunch of videos, right, and I see different people's opinions, right, on the matter of what exactly are people doing if who's in the wrong, who's in the right. They're blaming Gavin Newsom, they're blaming Trump, they're blaming the mayor of Los Angeles, they're blaming, all this is and that. Now, the reason for the disconnection or the anger, the uproar of individuals, they feel like their amendment rights are being violated, right? The freedom of speech, the freedom to protest. They're trying to silence these individuals, right? Um, People, and it's funny because it just recently happened, right? And people already are forgetting or trying to rewrite what actually is occurring. Um, the riots and all of that didn't happen until the National Guard came down. There was no need for the National Guard to be sent to Los Angeles. That is what created the riots, right? Now, um, Trump had reached out to law enforcement here in California, in Los Angeles, right, and asked if they needed the National Guard. The chief of the LAPD and the sheriffs said that they don't need the National Guard, that they have enough manpower, and that they don't feel like the situation is to the point where you need to send the National Guard. So they said thank you, but that they don't need it because it's against the law to send the National Guard to try to enforce your policies. Even if you are the president of the United States, right? Because you're not a dictator. Now, how do we know that Trump knows this information, or how do you guys know that I'm not lying, or how do you know that this is and that? Because you'll hear it come out of his very own mouth.
The Democrat, the Republican convention, I'm going to restore law and order, and I have, except in Democrat-run cities. Look, we have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that. Even in a Portland case, we can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor. And yet,
So you hear that? So he still sent the National Guard, even though the governor and the ones in charge of the LAPD and the sheriff, they said that they didn't need it. He still sent them either way, regardless of what these individuals, said or what they thought. They were gonna do he was gonna do what he was gonna do. And that is what created the uproar and the tensions and the beefs, right? So Donald Trump escalated the situation, right? He made the situation worse because now people feel like he's trying to silence them or punk them, and people are not just gonna have that, right? They're just not gonna take that line down. So there's definitely in his part, he doesn't make the right choices, right? He likes to flex, he likes to punk people, he likes to throw his ego around, his power, right? Even though it could make the situation worse, he doesn't care. He just wants what he says to go, right? Now, not to his defense, because like I said, I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal. I think they're all full of shit, right? But to Gavin Newsom though, or the Democrats, I would say, well, how do we fix this problem then? Like how do you do your job as a president, right? And your job is to part of your job is to enforce your policies, right? So if people are here illegally, breaking the law and coming over here illegally, right? And now you have the information that they're here illegally. Now, how do you go about fixing that situation? Do you just pretend and let people come in here illegally and not deport them? Because they're just doing their job, right? The federal agents are just doing their job, right? Because they're here illegally, they broke the law, and if they're here illegally, then they have to get deported. Every other country does it as well, right? There's no country that just has open borders or allows its people just to be, you have to go through the proper process just like every other country. So I understand from that aspect of things, right? Because it is against the law, and these individuals are just doing their job, and that is their job, to deport people, right? Um, but at the same time, I can also see it from the Raza's perspective, because these individuals are just trying to put food on the table, just trying to feed their families. They're not criminals. They're not, so why target them, or why, deport them, or why fuck up their families, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, why didn't they fix their papers? Why didn't they do it the legal way? Why didn't they, take the time to, do that? like you're supposed to. And so I understand from both sides, both perspectives, right? Because both sides are not wrong, right? um, you know, so it's a very difficult situation. It's a very tough thing to tackle, right? Because well, as a president, like, how do you combat this, right? Like, or like if they're here illegally, you got to deport them. Then I mean, that's their job. I mean, they're not doing nothing illegally. Now, if you're detaining people that are not here illegally, that are actually citizens, right, or that you know have visas and stuff like that, right? If you're detaining those people, trying to deport those people, or you're just racially profiling people, or just stopping just anybody, then yeah, then it's getting out of hand. Then there's a problem. Then because they did arrest some activists, right? Activists for the raza, right, that are citizens, right? They're being detained for some strange reason, which is an uproar in itself, right? That's why you have a lot of people out there protesting as well, for them to release those individuals because they are citizens. Why are you detaining them? You get me? Like, are they mad because they're holding the protest together? Like, that is crazy, right? Because they weren't breaking the law. It's within their rights to be out there and protesting, the injustice, you know. So I think it's a distraction by Donald Trump, because out of all time, why now to do this, right? But coming right in the time where Elon Musk and him are having their fallout, the whole Epstein thing was thrown out there. His beautiful bill, being on thin ice, right? Like a bill that's being targeted right now, right? So it's a distraction, right, to keep their people's minds off of what was actually happening, the real problem, right? About us losing all those manufacturing jobs, right? I think it was like 180,000 or something like that, jobs lost. Which in itself is outrageous, right? So there's a lot of things that are going on. So this is distracting it because now the news is not covering that subject, is not covering that. We're just being distracted with this whole bullshit of the ice and everything like that. So I find it kind of strange that the timing of things. All of a sudden we have this going on. But that's just my opinion. That's just my theory, right? Like, because it's Donald Trump's like that, right? He feels the heat, he distracts people. So I feel like that's why he's doing this, and going about it the way he's going about it, right? Um, because like I said, he doesn't really handle problems all that well. So you know I get it from the perspective of protesting peacefully, right, for what you believe in, right. But the whole throwing and destroying shit, how is that helping anything? How is that fixing any problems? You're making shit worse. You're only giving these people, why to do what they do, right? And but like I said, yeah, Donald Trump is also doing the same thing, right? But just not in the matter where he's destroying stuff, right? But he's actually violating people's civil rights and actually abusing his power. And we know this because he said it himself right here. But overall, that's just my thoughts on the matter. What are your thoughts? Go ahead and leave it in the comments and shout out. We out.